Alright guys, a little redneck tip of the day. When you don't have the tool to strip a wire this big, use a pocket knife. It's safe. Also be aware, the number one thing you should never do, don't touch two terminals with anything metal. You're not going to have a good time. Also, if you've got a sub and you're diagnosing issues with the sub going in and out, you might want to check all your connections, because sometimes if you don't have good connections, it'll go in and out, because like when you're driving hard turns, whipping it, you know, yeah, it'll pull the wires, separate them, and then your sub won't work intermittently. It'll work some and it won't work. So first thing to do, check your ground, check your power, check all your connections, make sure that they're all nice and tight. If you've got a sub that's coming in and out, good place to start.
Good. Go a little bit more. Yeah, that's good. I'm actually gonna run this under.
Yeah, you want to make sure that where you run the wire is not going to rub too much of anything.
I don't think I've never had a problem with one rubbing though.
I mean, most people don't, but it's just something you wanna watch out for. Yeah, when you're wiring this up, don't leave your power wire attached or touching the positive terminal, because you will spark, arc something. Also, make your connections, crimp them really tight, make sure they're not going to slide off, and make sure you use these little rubber sleeves. Helps make sure that you won't short off anything by the end of the wire here. Notice how we've got it tucked underneath and running underneath stuff to try to keep it out of the way. You know, don't put it against any bolts, any sharp edges. You don't want it to cut into anything. And sometimes on the firewall, like, okay, for instance, this is a, let me see if I can get in here closer. See if I can get in here closer. This is a big rubber plug, but you see how the plug has a hole in the middle and the rubber's on the outside, but it keeps the wires from rubbing this metal firewall, I guess you'd call it. Some of these little extra accessory plugs, it's sometimes good to take them out and then cut a hole in them and put them back into place and run the wire through that. That way you don't have a lot of, you know, rubbing on a sharp metal edge. It's just something to keep in mind. You know what? Dogs make every video great. Hey yo. Hey yo.
I got it.
Oh look, Jealous. Here's Jealous.
Now they're gonna fight running.
Alright, so when you buy your kit to install a sub, you want to make sure that your power wire is long enough to go from wherever the battery is in the vehicle all the way to where your amp's going to be. So, you know, some kits have shorter wires, some kits have longer wires, but you at least want to make sure that it's long enough to go however far it's going to take to get from the battery to the amp. For instance, in this car, in this Accord, battery's in the front, like most cars, and you have to have a long wire. However, in my car, the battery is in the trunk, so I didn't need a long wire. Maybe 3-4 feet, not that much. Here's another tip. When you're buying your whatever sub, whatever amp you want, it really pays to do the research. You want your ohms to match up, you want your watts, your peak watts to match up, RMS. You want all that to match up, because the closer it matches up, the better sound you're gonna have. It's kind of argued about what's the better sub for the situation. Some people like to say that the 1500 watt subs are the way to go, but we don't really agree with that. We want a sub that's max is close to the amp's max, but not under. So what that means is the amp can be maxed out, max power, and it won't over push the sub, but it'll get close. What that means is that you're getting the full potential out of whatever sub you buy. So it really doesn't matter what amp or watt sub and amp you get. You at least want the numbers to be close so that the amp can actually get the full potential of the sub. If you've got I don't know, a 400 watt amp and your sub is 1500 watts, you're not going to get full potential. In fact, you're probably going to get a lot worse sound than you could if you had a 500 watt max sub. So that's what you want to do. You want your sub to be, the peak power on the sub to be just a little higher than the peak power from your amp. That's the perfect setup. And you want ohms to be the same for both the sub and the amp. Ohms changes depending on whether you bridge the system or not. On this system, we've only got one sub, so we're going to bridge it. What that means is most of these amps have two channels. They've got the left side and the right side. And what that's for is if you've got two subs you're running. But we're only running one. So what you can do is bridge it. And I don't know if you can read, you see the little sign that says bridged at the top? You want to put your positive wire here and your negative wire here to go to one sub. All you really need to know is that it adds power to the sub and gives you a better sound, especially if you're trying to push more amps, or more watts rather, through the sub. So bridge setups, that's normally what we do.
It's cheaper than buying a mono amp with the same power.
Right, it's cheaper to buy a two-channel amp that you can bridge than it is to buy a mono amp that'll push the same amount of power as a two-channel. So that's why we do that. It's just cheaper. It saves money. But keep in mind, how does it change when you go between two-channel to bridge, like ohms? Do you normally have 2 ohms and it goes to 4 when you bridge it, or?
It just depends on cause see, at 2 channels it's 60 watt at 4 ohms, or it's 75 at 2 ohms. So the amp will do 2 ohms or 4 ohms.
Okay.
When you bridge it, it's only good for 4 ohms.
All right. So it's just what the amp is good for.
Work for, yeah, in between different ohms.
Okay.
Yeah, and you just have to have and then depending on what sub or speaker you use, like the ohms on the sub or the speaker, depends on how much power it actually uses from the amp.
Okay.
It's like you can have an amp that runs 250 RMS at 2 ohms, or if you only run a 4 ohm sub, it only runs like 150.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the resistance on the sub.
Okay. Yes. That's the only sound system you really need.
Rubber piece?
How long is that ground wire, you think? 3 foot?
So, yeah, that's exactly 3 foot.
Yeah, 3 foot. Okay. So, the ground wire that's going to come in the kit you buy is probably not going to be very long. The reason is that it doesn't really matter where you hook it. It just has to make a really good connection to the body of the car. You want to be aware of wherever you put it. It needs to be tight. It needs to be. A lot of people actually like to take the paint off of wherever on the body it is. And if your sub for some reason doesn't work well or it's intermittent, you might want to check where it's connected. Sometimes some parts of the body don't make a good ground and some parts make better ground. So that's what you want to look for when you hook up your ground wire to the car. So you got 100 watt difference? Okay.
RMS is the exact same.
Okay.
Just run it's your power. You just rip it smooth out or something. You have to push down to go, but like just don't. Once it's tight, don't keep screwing because it's MDF. Just like you have to push pretty hard to get it started.
As long as the amp is somewhere that you can get to it and adjust the settings on it, that's fine. But most people do tend to put the amp on the box just to make it easy.
You know when we bought Mama's old car, her old Honda, it had an amp rack that's like built out of metal and had up on the deck.
Cool. Ingenuity.
That's why hers had a good Pioneer sound system.
So this is the signal wire. Normally you attach it to the back of the radio. There are some alternate ways of hooking it up, but I think that's what we're going to do in this situation because the radio is aftermarket. It has a place to put a signal wire on it. The signal wire is important because it tells the amp when to turn on, when to turn off, so that it doesn't run all the time regardless of if you got the key on or not. Because if you don't, if you hook the signal wire straight to the battery or straight to a power source, it will stay on all the time and you will run your battery down. So that's not something you want to do. There are people who hook it up different ways, but in this instance we're going to hook it straight to the back of the radio. That's what you're supposed to do if you have the if you have a radio that has a place to put the signal wire. Let's see what we got. Yeah, we got a Kenwood, was that Bluetooth set up?
Okay. We're wrapping Kenwood today.
So we gotta connect that blue wire with these two blue wires?
Power connect, yeah.
So with both of these?
Yeah, that one. Or just you can just pigtail it into.
Any electric tape?
You got a place to put the control wire?
Control wire?
Yeah, that blue wire.
I think we're gonna run it through the panel on that side.
Well, no, I mean, where are you gonna hook it up to? Is there a harness, place on the harness to hook it?
We're hooking it to the power
Control?
Yeah. 40 rolls in this.
Okay.
Power control.
And you bought this harness from Crutchfield?
I don't know where I bought this.
Different website, okay. But it's got everything labeled.
Yeah.
So you got power control labeled and all that. It makes this really easy. Is your signal for the sub labeled here?
Yeah, that's what the power connect.
Power connect?
Yeah, that blue one he's taping.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Not signal, but I meant like...
it plugs into the back of the radio.
Okay, so...
The red wire.
The back of the radio. Alright, the back of the radio has your wires that you're going to need to connect from the radio to the amp.
Like
this is the radio wire in this tin. And this is for the air conditioning stuff. And that's for my clock.
Okay, alright.
Got a little clock. Has a little clock.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just gonna run. Where are we gonna run this down through?
Down on this side, I think.
Okay.
No, we need to do it on that side.
Do it on this side too?
Yeah, with the power.
Make it easier?
That, and it's still gonna have the same signal. So.
Okay.
So we're gonna find a spot. Yeah, we're going straight down.
So currently we're trying to find a place to run the power control wire or signal wire from the back of the radio to where the amp is in the back. I think in this situation we're going to run it next to where your positive wire from the battery terminal is going to be, underneath the panels along the side of the vehicle. Anytime that you can buy something as far as wiring harnesses that's pre-labeled, it simplifies the process so much more than if you were trying to just pull one wire at a time and figure out which goes to what, because wiring harnesses generally are not anything more than color coded, and good luck finding the schematics on different vehicles. It's not easy to do.
I don't think it really matters for us though.
Alright, so does it, hey, now are those things labeled for different things?
What do you mean?
The three?
Yeah, you got front, rear, and sub.
Okay, so you've got 2 front and rear plug-ins and then the 1 sub.
That's for like if you're running them to an amp to run speakers.
Okay. Where are we going to run these wires?
On here.
Okay, so we gotta run these on
you're supposed to run on the other side.
Oh, okay, alright.
Because something about signal a jump from the power wire to this.
Yeah.
And I'll just send a signal, for this up to hit.
Alright, so now that we've got the back of the radio hooked up the way we want it, we're just putting it back in the dash.
Let's go to.
So,
It runs over here.
these wires, your signal wires, these are the ones that you don't want to run next to the power. We're actually not going to do that. I said we were at first, but we changed, or I was confused.
We were going to.
Oh,
We decided to do it the right way.
Yeah, we changed our mind then. And so these are going to go under these
We decided
panels.
popping off plastic panels was worth doing it the right way.
Right. Well, I mean, if they come off easy, it's fine.
Yeah, I didn't think they were gonna come off that easy.
The problem with plastic panels is that sometimes you pop them off and they break, and then you're kind of hosed.
To be honest.
It looks like an oxygen
So
hose.
that's kind of what we worried about at first. But these are coming off easy, so it's not that big of a deal. But that's just something you want to be aware of.
What's this?
Feel me like a Hellcat.